This is Danny Flexon here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by top trainer Shane McGuigan. Shane, how are you?
Good, thanks Danny, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. We saw Lawrence Okolie there, just tapering off his preparations for Sunday night. What will Cieslak bring to the table, do you think?
Look, he's a well-established professional boxer. He's had over 20 fights. He's only lost the one. The fight he lost was against the WBC world champion in Makabu. And it was a very close fight. So it's well schooled, got good feet, got good jab, got good punch variety. But physicality lies in Lawrence Okolie's favour, power lies in Lawrence Okolie's favour. Judgment distance lies there. There's a lot of things that are stacking up in his favour, and I believe he'll get him out of there around the middle distance.
There's been a lot of talk about Lawrence moving up to heavyweight. Is there any sort of physical time limit on how long he can stay at cruiser in terms of making the weight?
No, he does the weight. He does the weight all right. He has to train hard to get down to the weight, but it's not like he's cutting a lot on fight week. He's probably cutting the least out of everyone in the gym actually on fight week, but he grafts his arse off to get there. He's a big frame. He can go well over 100 kilos, but as soon as he diets and disciplines himself, he brings the weight down. But it's mainly just the opportunities. If we're not getting the opportunities down here at cruiserweight, then what's the point? You know what I mean? If none of the other champions want to fight him, and Eddie and that can't secure other opponents, then other champions, then we might have to move up. I wouldn't even mind him moving up for the one, dabbling at it, and then getting the BRIEDIS fight after. But BRIEDIS has got his mindset on Jake Paul and trying to cash out and trying to make money, an extraordinary amount of money. But there's a fight there on the table for him in Lawrence Okolie. I just think we'll see what comes about. But we're in a rush to get places because you've only got a career and it's a short shelf life. He only boxed twice last year. We need to be more active. And if we're not active because other people don't want to box him and other cruiserweights and champions don't want to box him, then we'll move to heavyweight and fight more regular, bigger names.
Well, we were saying earlier that he could go up to heavyweight and fight someone, just as an example, like Dereck Chisora, and probably make a lot more money for what might be an easier fight.
Yeah, Dereck Chisora is a much easier fight than Marius BRIEDIS. It's a much easier fight. These guys are slower. They're more physical, but they're slower. They probably take slightly better punches, but I remember when I was working with David Hay and I arranged him to go and spar with Michael Hunter, and he said a really sharp cruiserweight's way harder fight for me than a big slow heavyweight, and that's exactly the same with Lawrence Okolie. It's these guys that are sharper and faster give you much more problems than if they just ponder forward, happy to take one or two punches, because when you've got power and you're a cruiserweight with power, you can knock anybody out really in the world if you hit them clean. And I think that's Lawrence Okolie.
You got Fowler moved up to middleweight on Sunday's bill as well. What's he been like in camp? Because he said something on Twitter recently about how hard he's worked, made more sacrifices this time around.
He's always made sacrifices. It's never been for a lack of trying with Anthony. He hasn't worked any harder. He might have in his head. He worked slightly harder this camp, but it's never. Hindsight's a great thing. When you look back on it, and think, I could have done a little bit more here and there, but it wasn't. He was well prepared for those fights. He just those last 4 or 5 pounds makes a big difference. It takes away your strength, and even though you're putting that weight on with water, it's not the same. You only have 36 hours, and some people can do it and other people can't. Josh Taylor, I used to work with him. He used to cut more weight than Anthony Fowler, even when Fowler was at light middleweight, but he was just able to recover quicker. Probably wasn't quite as lean, I don't know, but with Anthony, we sat and reflected on it, and he said, look, I don't want to be walking around, don't want to be too heavy on fight week. I want to be close to the weight, and he's literally bang on his weight now. But if that's what makes him feel energized, and that's what makes him feel energized, I think a lot of the time it's about how you react. If you're tired, if you're sluggish, you're not reactive, and if you're a reaction fighter, if you're someone that's and he's a counter puncher effectively. He's quite an aggressive counter puncher. He'll push you back and he'll try and draw the lead. And if your energy isn't up, then you're not sharp. So let's see how he goes at middleweight. But I genuinely believe it's going to be a better Anthony Fowler. And that's not just because he's moved up in weight. It's also the fact that he's learnt his lessons down at light middleweight. He's learnt his lessons with a world-class fighter, Liam Smith. You can't exert yourself and waste shots with guys that are good pressure fighters. That's going to be the same at middleweight. It's going to be exactly the same. It's just you have to be more selective. And if he's that bit fresher, more energised, he won't let his brain go off and just waste shots. So it's something that we've been trying to drill him for a while. But he's got all of the things that you need to become a world champion. He's got a very good power. He's got a fantastic jab. He's got good feet. That's something we've been trying to work on. But his legs aren't that. They're not. There's down for a little bit. But at the same time, if they're a little bit more energised and fresher, they'll be more reactive. So. He's got it all. He just needs to figure himself out, figure the distance out, work on pacing himself, and we have to make sure that we have 1 or 2 acid tests before we push him on.
On the subject of Fowler, he gave you some praise on Twitter yesterday in response to what seemed like a bit of a dig from a former pro in Danny Connor. I'll bring this up because he's not the only one. You seem to attract a bit of criticism unfairly at times, certainly in my view. Just why do you think that is, I guess, is the question.
Because we ain't on the payroll. So that's all I need to say. There's a certain organisation that has people on the payroll trying to slander us, and that's just the fact of the matter. Everyone says, "Oh, make sure you get paid." Everyone gets paid properly. Everyone gets paid on time. Anthony Fowler pays me, and I do a fantastic job for him. And every single fighter in my gym understands that. So I'm not going to name names that people need to, or even people that go and try and make themselves relevant. You know what I mean? It's a shame that you're former fighters or you're world champions and you're trying to bring my name in and trying to slander my name when actually he's way less relevant than I am. Do you know what I mean? There's many people out there that are less relevant. So, and that's not me being arrogant. It's just the truth, But look, we have always done fantastically well for our fighters. 90% of our fighters, 99% of our fighters don't have to go back to work after they finish boxing, all right? Because they've been matched well, they've been trained well, they've been managed well, and they've made a hell of a lot of money. And they're all, most of them are world champions. So that's enough of that, really.
Does it ever get to you, whether it's them or whether it's fans? Or
you have to care about people for it to get to you, and I genuinely do not care about people like that. I don't care about those people. If they want to go and say stuff to me, then so be it. I just ignore it and just literally block, get out of my life. And if they were in front of me, they wouldn't be saying it. Danny Cassius Connor. Come on, let's be honest. I remember that lad in the bloody lodge. He come up to me in Lansbury and says, "Do you remember me when you were down the lodge? Because I was hitting the bags and Mick Carney didn't even give me pads. Now look at me, I'm Southern Area champion." I said, well done, mate. But he has to go back to work and he has to go and graft. And the fact of the matter is that if he was looked after well and if he was trained well, he could have done a bit more.
Now let's talk about Daniel Dubois, obviously WBA interim champion at the moment. How close are we now to a fight between him and Trevor Bryan for the full WBA belt?
I'm not too sure actually. I mean, I think it was quite nailed on, and I'm not too sure now. But he was going to be on the April the 23rd undercard, and if Trevor Bryan wants to come over and fight, then I think there's a great offer on the table for him. I'm not sure. He's promoted by Don King, and we got told it was pretty much locked in, and now I'm not quite sure. So hopefully the fight can get made, and if not, we need another big opponent. We need someone that we can get motivated for. He hasn't boxed since end of August. We've had 2 fights together. He's a young heavyweight that needs to be active because he needs to learn his craft, and he's doing it in the gym, but there's a big difference from doing it in the gym, sparring and training, than doing it on the big stage. So we've had 3 rounds together since we've been working together, and that was nearly a year ago. 3 competitive rounds in 2 fights, and that's because he carries so much power, but also we need a person that's going to get him up for the fight, so he can test himself, whether that's a Dereck Chisora or someone like that. I want big names for him because I genuinely believe he's going to beat them all in time. He's only a baby now, but give us another 18 months, 12 months, 18 months, and give us that 12 months and 18 months of learning. You know what I mean? Because once he has decent acid tests, then he's not going to get, because he was knocking everyone out, and then he was in against the guy that arguably should have won the gold at the Olympics 30, I think he's like 35 now, so he'd have been about 33 at the time. Seasoned person, you know what I mean? Like even though he hadn't had that many fights, he was a mature adult, and he'd matured into his frame. Dan's only 24 years of age. He's in heavyweight terms, he is genuinely a baby, and he's got so much potential. So I'm just excited to see. To see him fulfill it, but we need to be active, and I think Frank's always done a fantastic job with Dan. But we want to get a decent name for that April 23rd show, because we want a bit of that limelight to be on Dan, because it's going to be all about Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. But if we have a decent opponent, people are still going to get up for it and be excited to see him, and if he's, no matter how many people, if it's 60, 80,000 people turning out and he knocks somebody out cold, that people think it's a relatively close fight and does a proper number on him, then they're going to be instant fans. So that's what we want.
Who do you think that might be? Obviously, we talked about Brian. You mentioned maybe Chisora as well. Anyone else out there you kind of think would be fit the mould?
I think anyone, like Chris Arreola, people like that. People that have fought for a world title. We could look down Deontay Wilder's ex-opponents and pick one of them up. We could look at Dereck Chisora as well. I just think we need to get a decent opponent. And look, I know it's going to cost a bit of money, but I think it would be money well spent, because it will make a star out of him.
And just before I let you go, Ellie Scotney won her first title in her last fight. Got a nasty cut from either a head clash, I believe. Yeah, but came through it well, considering it seemed like a real test of character.
I think she was great for 8 rounds. Gianni came out flying early on. Hard to defend against someone that puts their head down and almost just closes their eyes and throws loads of punches. It's hard to defend 4 or 5 punches, and when they're coming in flurries. But she moved her feet well. She created the space well. It was her first time doing 10 rounds. I think there's a lot of people. If it wasn't for that point off in the last round, it was 7-3, and what's more, I think she picked the shots well. When it comes to work rate, she wasn't working hard enough sometimes, but she just was landing the more eye-catching punches, and it was that's a real good fight for her. It's a fight that's really gonna help her in her development. So I was really happy with it.
Brilliant, Shane. Always appreciate your time.